Okay, I guess we're live, guys. Okay, so we're live in Bigo and we're live here in YouTube. Okay, guys. Anyways, today I'm going to do my podcast number 17. Number 16, I did a little bit on FDI policy. I'm pretty sure you must have listened to me, and I hopefully you've shared my videos to other people as well. So I'll be talking about diplomatic life and careers, okay? So anybody who is interested in diplomacy or anybody who's interested in, foreign services, etc., I think this is the place to be. And if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to comment in, okay? What we'll do is we'll try to analyze, we'll try to find some solutions, and hopefully we'll delve more into it and try to find, answers to your questions, okay? All right. Okay. So, anyways, we're here at say about 8:45. Okay, guys. Anyways, so here's a question here about diplomatic life and career. Okay, and the question here is it less fun being a diplomat than it was 50 or 100 years ago? Discuss. So, guys, I just want to point out here, okay, that over time, I did my studies in America. Okay, I was doing my bachelor's degree. I went to America during 2008, by the way, and apparently, I was working there, and I was doing part-time work, slash, trying to survive into this new environment. So, and guys, I'm from India. Okay, I'm from India. I'm from the northeast part of India, which is in Nagaland. One of the states in India. Okay, so I went there when I was I would say, I think I was about 20 years old. Yeah, 20 years old. 19 going 20. Okay, that was in 2008, and I did my studies abroad, and I did my BA and then my associates from California. Okay, also I would say I did my bachelor's in history in California State University, Bakersfield, and with a minor in political science. Okay, and after that, I was working for a little bit in, in the library as a librarian, as a historian. Okay, so yeah, I got my short-term work visa, so I was working there for a little bit, and also. After that, I did my master's degree. Okay, I did my master's degree. I went to UK, Keele University to be precise, which is in it's called Stoke-on-Trent. Okay, it's kind of very close by to Staffordshire, by the way. Staffordshire University is very close by. Okay, so I did my master's in diplomatic studies, which is under the political science. Department. So, or you would say, politics, economics, philosophy, and environment per se. But anyways, that's my background. Okay, so that's why I just want to talk about diplomatic life and career. I have encountered a couple of diplomats. I think one of the diplomat that I met was from the Roman Holy See. Okay, I had a I went to a conference, and some of my colleagues was also there. The whole class, I think my class, I'm pretty sure some of my classmates were there as well. He did a very good interview on, the diplomacy on the Holy See. So I think, we definitely learned a lot about that. So anyways, I'm not going to go too much into my past, but what I'm going to do is we're going to move forward here, okay? So the question here is it less fun to be a diplomat 50 or 100 years ago? Okay, so let me just give you like a definition of what is diplomacy, okay? Diplomacy, which was once a relatively simple process, has now become vastly complicated. Not only because of the growing number of complex problems we face in the world, but also because of the constantly increasing number of states with which we have to deal. So this was written by Francis Old Wilcox. He was, the preface of that book was written by, the U.S. diplomat. Wait. Yeah. So Francis Old Wilcox was the diplomat, U.S. diplomat. Okay. Uh, but the book, the author of the book is called Elmer Pilchak. Okay. Which was published in 1979. Okay. So it's been a long time ago. But anyways. So guys, I think we need diplomacy at this very crucial time to era per se, where there's a lot of warmongering. There's a lot of trade war. There's a lot of hostilities. Suspicion, and the whole virus thing is also kind of bringing about a lot of hostilities and racism, xenophobia. I don't know what you call it, but it's just out there. It's just all the nasty stuff. And I think what we need to do is we need to try to sort of evolve into this whole diplomatic life and diplomatic mindset to try to like curb this vice out from all the craziness in this world. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown. Okay, so the question here is, guys, I'm going to ask you: is it less fun being a diplomat than it was 50 or 100 years ago? Okay. So let's kind of look back in the past of how diplomats kind of lived and how the principles of diplomacy actually functioned within their missions or in their embassy or wherever they were posted. Okay. So okay. By the way, I just wanted to point out that diplomat is a person who is appointed by a country. Okay, say for example, the Indian country will assign a diplomat or an ambassador to, let's give and take, Russia, or let's give and take America, right? Or Mali, somewhere. They're posted there for about 4 to 5 years, and they carry out official duties and represent their country. Okay, so these are diplomats, modern day diplomats, and also the previous year's diplomats. So I would say diplomacy is something that is very ancient, and it is almost as old as the sun, I would say. And I'll just give you a little bit of historical background over time, and I'll just give you some of the examples and some of the stories that might be relevant towards this topic. All right. So, guys, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown about the past, of how diplomats carried about their functions, how diplomacy was. Okay. So there was an establishment of professional diplomatic service in every European country. Okay. So I think I've spoken to you a little bit about the resident missions, which was kind of like it was very pronounced during the Renaissance time, and also in the Italian city-states. So yeah, I wouldn't say too much on the Greco or Greco diplomacy or Greek diplomacy or the ancient Amarna diplomacy per se, but I would say the establishment of the professional diplomatic service was established in European countries. So there was a lot of similar standards of education. So every diplomat need to go about with a similar standard of education, experiences, and their aims. Okay, so basically their goals as well. How they want to, speak to the other country based on your country's point of views. Okay, so guys, the purpose of diplomacy, okay, is essentially, I would say, or let me just put it this way: the art of diplomacy is bringing about peace between two nations or between many other nations, or what you call it, bringing about peace in this world. Okay, so that's pretty much what I think diplomacy is. Okay, so I know there's a lot of people with different definitions, but nevertheless. So number two, negotiations. Okay, were continuous and confidential among diplomats. Okay, mostly bilateral. So back in the day, negotiations among diplomats or among nation states or city states was usually very continuous and very confidential. So it was very secretive, I would say. Number three, he was fully informed. Because why I say he is because usually a diplomat back in the day was a male. So definitely not very much women out there. But I would highly advocate for women diplomats in this era. Okay, this is very important, guys. I think this is one of the things that needs to be really emphasized in today's world, is because women do have a very big part to play, and women are the key players towards peaceful bilateral or multilateral relations. Okay, so yes, he was fully informed of local interests, weaknesses, and strengths, prejudices, and ambitions. Okay, nowadays more specialized. Okay, local reefs and sandbags were a form of navigation. Conversations and negotiations were private and confidential. Okay, so if you would imagine like somebody going to Middle East and a diplomat going all across the desert, you would imagine carrying sandbags and like camels on top of their humps, and you had ambassador and the convoy. So that's what it was back in the day. So here's another professional diplomat. Okay, his name is Jules Campbell. So guys, if you're ever interested in diplomacy, I would say some of the authors that are very prominent and very well, not breathtaking, but a very serious author could be Nicholson. Nicholson is one of them, and you have Jules Campbell as well, and you have Elmer Pilchak. Okay, and I think these people are one of the very prominent people that you might want to look up and read about their books and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So Jules Campbell, who was a professional diplomat of his time, writes, and I quote, okay, "The day secrecy is abolished, negotiations of any kind will become impossible," unquote. So this was written by Elmer Pilchak in his book, okay? So in his book, I would recommend reading this book called Modern Diplomacy, The Art and the Artisans, 1979, okay? Elmer Pilchak. So, I think the gist of what he's saying is that when secrecy kind of goes, outside the window, that is when, there is not going to be, good diplomacy, per se. So I think secrecy is very important if you want to pursue, diplomacy, okay? Because I think, it doesn't have to be the new diplomacy way, that you have to change, the principles of diplomacy. Because I think, the old rhymes until today, okay? The old kind of diplomacy still rhymes, okay? So anyways, now I'm just going to present what is the current kind of diplomacy, okay? And so I think a lot of, people who are viewers here might have like family members, or it could be even your family, like, close family members who are diplomats. So, I think you will get what I'm saying here. So, number one, okay, balance in power is discredited, okay? Why? Okay, because, so according to President Wilson, okay, he was an American president. Okay, if you look up Wilson, he's a kind of a, he was very, a very important person in bringing about the United Nations together. Okay, but anyways, he says, and I quote, "The reign of law based upon the consent of the government and sustained by the organized opinion of mankind." So I'm going to repeat this again. The reign of law based upon the consent of the governed and sustained by the organized opinions of mankind, unquote. Okay, so it kind of focuses a lot on the United Nations kind of diplomacy, where power is kind of like balanced out among like many multilateral entities, countries, officials, and all that stuff. Okay, so also you have the 5 Ps as well, all that stuff. So thank you very much, El Naga, RG Naga as well, guys. for joining in, and thank you for the gift. Appreciate. Thank you, for joining in. Submit, Sabit Sub. You have El Naga as well. You have Yangchi Yaden. Let's see who else is joined here. You have SP Singh here, Farah Khan, and you have Neeraj S. Um, yeah, so we have a couple of people here. I think it's about, give and take, about 90, I would say. Okay. All right. Okay. So the present kind of diplomacy, the second one I want to talk to you about is diplomacy by conference. Okay, these are the permanent state of conference. So this was introduced by the League system and later by the United Nations. So the League of Nations and the United Nations kind of trajected this kind of diplomacy, which is diplomacy by conference. Okay, or you would also say conference diplomacy. Okay, now you also have what is called public diplomacy. And I think I've spoken to you a little bit about public diplomacy in my previous podcast, but public diplomacy is pretty much, it's a lot of publicity, there's a lot of Twitter, there's a lot of Instagram, Facebook, and, usually diplomats kind of carry about this kind of diplomacy, and many people think it is almost like, there's another word for public diplomacy, it's called naked diplomacy or a naked diplomat, where everything is in your fingertips, or everything that goes about is very swift, I would say, and the whole world kind of knows what you were thinking. For example, if you want to tweet, everybody knows what you're thinking. So there's this negative aspect, and there's also this positive aspect of public diplomacy, and also Twitter diplomacy. I would say. I just coined that word, Twitter diplomacy. Okay, but anyways, it could lead to sometimes fictitious results because it's at the moment. It's not well thought. It's not processed. It's not kind of like reviewed among peers and professional and research. Academicians and all that people. So it could be a problem as well. And also, let me just point this out here again. Jet lag and long distance travel can have negative effects. Okay, so nowadays diplomats, back in the day, how people used to go about, in like horses or camels or I don't know. I think donkeys as well. But and carts and all that stuff. But nowadays, people travel. Okay, people travel by airplanes and super boats and all that stuff. So, but the problem is, if you have like a meeting next day, and if you want to reach, so you do take the airplane early. If you want to reach early, you take the airplane. And you reach the same day, and so you're kind of preparing. You even have the time to have your dinner outside, some kind of restaurant, and reach the destination. So, but the downside is you're tired. Okay, the next morning, you have a lot of jet lag, so your mind cannot function 100%. So that's when it becomes a problem. Okay, so these are some of the advantages, and I'll give you some more here. So there's a lot of destruction of family life because diplomats usually tend to live outside for 4 to 5 years. So they miss out the family bonding times. For example, I don't know, holiday, summer breaks. You're expecting your children to come back home, but your daddy or your mommy is not home, right? So that's when it becomes a problem. And another problem here is, there's a lot of problems for marriage as well, spouses and husbands. Like when they don't have too much time together, it becomes a problem. Okay. Now, you have languages as well. If you want a diplomat, I think you definitely need to know a couple of languages, I would say. So that's a very important criteria. A diplomat is always on public view. Okay, so a diplomat it's called public life because you're pretty much in public view in every conference meeting, and you have to represent your country. So you do have to like kind of have a very thick skin to be in this position here. Now, yes, as a diplomat, you can write, but your personal views are not necessarily, you know, allowed per se. Well, in certain manners it is allowed, but not every time. It's usually, the government's view of your country's government's view. You need to like market it. You need to let the other receiving state know what the sending state is doing. Okay. Now, let's go to the next one. You have to identify with with certain regimes, which regime is like on power, uh, you know, which militant outfits are there. You have to be like on the ground. Your eyes have to be on the ground, and your ears have to be on the ground as well. Okay, so this can be a challenge, I would say. And also sometimes, it could be that your life is in danger. Why? Because a diplomat usually, have to face a lot of terrorist attacks in the embassy or the consular, office. So that becomes a problem. Your life is in danger. So is your children. So sometimes if you want to bring your children, you take them, to some kind of a international school, and they're studying there. Sometimes your child gets kidnapped because there was a problem with your country and the receiving country. So
Okay, all right. Okay, guys, welcome back to YouTube. Sorry about my technical problem here. There's some. My computer has not been working very well lately. There's a lot of updates, man, for some reason. But anyways, guys, I'm back here. So, guys, somebody asked me, okay, what are you gonna do? To Nagaland, because he or she asked me how's the economy of Nagaland. So I said it's not good, because I think there's the infrastructure is not there. I think there's a very big stalemate in Nagaland, and I think what we need to do is we need to have a bigger dream, and we need to have a vision here, everybody here, and there's a need for that, and we need that kind of skills, to move forward. Okay, guys. So yeah, I'm just going to wrap this up with what I was going to talk, to you about diplomatic life and career. Okay, so guys, I just want to wrap this up. Before I wrap it up, I'll just not wrap it up as in like wrap it up, but I'll stop talking about diplomacy after I finish this. Okay. So yes, I missed out on the YouTube people here that some of the problems that a diplomat goes about during his career is that he will have to identify with a lot of regimes or a lot of people in the higher and the lower and the underground and the overground people, and so you also have to have a lot of safety measures, because there's a lot of terrorist attacks that happens in embassy or in the consulate offices. Okay, and you also have to have a kind of like a good, like trustable people, because you're going to go in a public life. So what you need to do is you need to have a good set of people who will protect you and save you from public life per se. And so yes, intelligence, your eyes and your ears on the ground is very important as well, and you need to have very high standards, okay, of living. Not necessarily you have to live a very luxury life, but there's high standards abroad. Okay, so you do have to show that you kind of represent your country. So you do have to have some kind of a showmanship as well here. Okay, now the last one I would say is very hard to make friends because you're always on the job, and you kind of know just a couple of people. So yeah, that's the problem there. Okay guys, so let's wrap this up here. Okay, so I gave you like advantages and disadvantages of a diplomat, and also how it is, when a diplomat goes about in his career and his life and personal life as well. So that's the answer, and that's how it's going to be. Okay. All right. So, guys, I think what I'm going to do in my Bigo account is somebody asked me a question here. Okay. So how do we kind of reinvent Nagaland? So that's what I was kind of thinking about for a couple of days. Okay. So some of the things that I will actually discuss with you in my next next podcast is that I think we need to kind of reinvent ourselves. Okay. We have a very small population, we have a very small state indeed, but there's a total breakdown of governance. Okay. There's corruption, which is rampant. Okay. And it's not only me, it's the people who I've been kind of listening about and kind of putting my ears on the ground, and I'm kind of picking it up that it's not just me who's thinking this. Okay. Commercialization of politics, okay, have completely destroyed the sanctity of a democratic state per se, or nation. Okay. So there's too much of that. Okay. And there's a lot of administration expenditures which are kind of too heavy on the unnecessary expansion of the administrative bodies, which is not necessary, and it kind of gives a big problem, okay, to the development of the state of Nagaland. Okay, so yeah, all right, so I will talk to you about that. Okay, and hopefully I think I'll kind of bring about some of the facts and some of the origins of and how to go about reforming Nagaland, how to go about touching the Northeast within this narrative, because I think it's very important for us generation, for the youths, for the young people, and also for the old people. I think we kind of really need to seriously think about how to reform, how to reinvent Nagaland from the scratch. Okay, this is very important. Okay, and how to go about in good governance. All right. So thank you, Nora. Okay, guys, we have a lot of people joining in here. We have HMM, we have Ajujur Rahman, we have Kosh, we have Sain Khan, we have Nora as well. Thank you very much. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this up. But please join me in my next podcast. I apologize for the technical problems, but this will not happen again. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye bye.